AITA for refusing to let my friend live in my spare room rent-free. I 36 female am in a bit of a moral predicament, and I honestly do not know if I am being selfish or simply protecting my peace. I have worked incredibly hard to get to where I am today. After years of scraping by in tiny, cramped apartments with paper-thin walls, inconsiderate neighbors, and a never-ending cycle of bad landlords, I finally managed to buy my own home, a modest but beautiful two-bedroom house that I take immense pride in. It is not extravagant by any means, but it is mine. It is my sanctuary, my safe space, the one place where I can truly relax without worrying about anyone else's mess, noise, or drama. Enter Alex. Alex and I have been close friends for over a decade. We have been through a lot together, breakups, job losses, personal crises, you name it. He is the kind of friend who can make me laugh even on my worst days, and I truly do care about him. But Alex has always been a little chaotic. He has never been great with money, often spending beyond his means, living paycheck to paycheck, and then wondering why he is always struggling. He has quit jobs on impulse, burned bridges with employers, and has generally had a hard time maintaining stability. Despite all that, he has always managed to land on his feet, until now. A few weeks ago, Alex lost his job. He says it was unfair, that his boss was a nightmare, that he had no choice but to walk out. I have heard similar stories from him before, so while I sympathize, I also cannot ignore the pattern. Not long after, his landlord decided not to renew his lease, citing unreliable payment history and constant late rent as the reason. Again, Alex insists this is unfair. And again, I have heard this before. Now, Alex is in a bind. He has no job, no savings, and no place to go. Naturally, he turned to his closest friends for help, and considering I have a spare room, I was the first person he asked. He told me he just needs a place to stay temporarily, rent-free, until he gets back on his feet. He assured me it would not be long, that he would find another job quickly, and that he would not be a burden. He even said, if the roles were reversed, you know I would do the same for you. At first, I felt guilty for even hesitating. Of course, I want to help my friend. That is what friends do, right? But the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I became. I know Alex. I know his patterns. What if temporary turns into months? What if he does not actively look for a job? What if he starts treating my house like his own and does not respect my space? What if I end up in the awkward position of having to kick him out because he has overstayed his welcome? Beyond that, I love my home. I love my quiet, my routines, my ability to walk around in my pajamas at any hour of the day without feeling self-conscious. I love not having to clean up after anyone but myself, not having to compromise on how things are run in my own space. The thought of having someone else, even a friend, disrupting that makes my stomach twist. I gently tried to voice some of these concerns to Alex, but he did not take it well. He looked genuinely hurt and said he could not believe I was being so selfish. He reminded me that I have an entire extra room just sitting there empty while he has nowhere to sleep. He said I would not even notice him, that he would be out of the house most of the time looking for work, that it would be like he was not even there. He kept saying, I would do it for you in a heartbeat, over and over, as if that alone should be enough to convince me. Then came the guilt from mutual friends. A couple of them reached out to me separately, saying they heard about Alex's situation and could not believe I was hesitating to help. One even said, if you can't count on your closest friends in times of need, then what's the point? That one really stung. But the thing is, I do not think it is as simple as they are making it out to be. I do not think Alex moving in for free is just about helping a friend in need. It is about protecting the peace I have worked so hard to build. I have seen friendships fall apart over situations like this, and I do not want that to happen to us. I do not want to resent him if he does not pull his weight, if he stays longer than expected, if he starts making himself too comfortable in my home. I even considered offering a compromise, letting him stay for a month with the understanding that he actively job hunts and contributes something, even if it is just groceries or utilities. But I know Alex. If I give him an inch, he will take a mile. And then what? I have to be the bad guy who tells my unemployed, struggling friend to leave. So, here I am, feeling like a terrible person for not wanting to open my home, but also feeling like I would be making a huge mistake if I did. Am I the asshole for wanting to protect my space, even at the cost of disappointing a friend in need? Update 1. I wanted to believe I was doing the right thing. When I told Alex he could stay for a month, just until he found a job and a new place, I convinced myself that I wasn't making a mistake. I thought setting a clear boundary up front would keep things from spiraling out of control. But deep down, I knew better. Alex was good at pushing limits. He always had been. But I wanted to trust that he would take this seriously. I wanted to believe that I wasn't setting myself up for disaster. I told myself that this was temporary, that he was my friend, that it wasn't a big deal. After all, how much damage could a month really do? At first, I tried to be supportive. Every morning, I casually asked him about his job search. Find anything interesting? Send out any applications today? I didn't want to come across as nagging, but I figured gentle encouragement would be enough to keep him on track. Every time, his response was some version of, "I just need a little more time to decompress." At first, it was a couple of days to clear his head. He had been through a lot, he said. Losing his job, losing his apartment, it was overwhelming. He needed a few days to shake off the stress. Then it was a week because the job market is really tough right now. He swore he was looking, but he needed to be strategic, not desperate. Then came the excuses about his resume needing updates, about needing to mentally prepare for interviews, about needing to figure out what kind of job he really wanted before he started applying anywhere. He said he didn't want to fall back into a toxic workplace, that rushing into the wrong job would only set him up for failure again. And I wanted to be understanding. I really did. So I backed off. By week 2, I noticed a shift. He wasn't looking for work at all. I would come home from work and find him sprawled out on my couch, playing games on his phone or flipping through whatever show he had mindlessly decided to binge on that day. At first, I told myself he was just taking a break. Job hunting was stressful. But as the days passed, I realized he was making himself comfortable in a way that felt too permanent. He had completely settled in. The dishes in the sink weren't mine. The groceries in the fridge were disappearing twice as fast, but he never once offered to contribute. He wasn't going to bed at a normal time anymore, staying up late watching movies in my living room, leaving half-empty snack bags and soda cans on the coffee table. He was using my utilities without a second thought, running the shower for what felt like half an hour, blasting the heat because he liked it cozy. He had even started leaving his laundry in the machine for me to move if I needed to use it. I started pressing harder. "Alex, you promised you'd be job hunting." He would sigh dramatically and tell me how exhausted he was. "I just walked away from a toxic work environment, Sam. I can't just jump back into another one. I need to figure out what I really want to do." That was when it hit me, he wasn't even thinking about the job search. He was thinking about himself, about his comfort, about how nice it was to have a free place to stay with no pressure, no stress, no bills. By week 3, I was getting frustrated. I had been more than patient, more than accommodating, but it was clear that Alex wasn't treating this like a temporary arrangement. It was starting to feel like he was treating it as a lifestyle upgrade. His things had slowly migrated into the second bedroom, not just a suitcase, but his gaming console, stacks of books, random clutter that made it look like he had been living there for years. It was subtle, the way he started acting like he belonged there. He would make comments about how nice my place was, how peaceful it felt, how lucky I was to have this kind of space to myself. One day, he laughed and said, "Honestly, Sam, you've got it made here. It's hard to feel motivated to leave and it's this comfortable." That's when I knew. He wasn't planning to leave anytime soon. Update 2. The 1-month mark arrived, and with it came the conversation I had been dreading. I had spent the entire day feeling restless, my stomach twisted in knots, the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on me like a storm cloud that refused to pass. I had rehearsed it in my head a dozen times, maybe more, trying to anticipate every possible reaction, every excuse, every attempt to manipulate the situation. I imagined him getting defensive, acting hurt, brushing it off like it wasn't a big deal. I had played out versions where he promised, swore up and down, that he would start trying, that he would change, that he would make an effort. I had even braced myself for the possibility that he would get upset, maybe sulk for a few days, but ultimately, I believed that when faced with reality, he would accept the fact that things couldn't continue like this. I told myself I was ready, that this was necessary, that it was time to put my foot down before things spiraled even further out of control. I had been more than generous, more than patient, and I knew deep down that I had already let things go on longer than I should have. I had let my guilt dictate my choices, let my friendship with Alex cloud my judgment. But this was my home, my life, my stability that was at stake. And if I didn't set a boundary now, then when? So I sat him down, my heart pounding in my chest, trying to keep my voice steady, my expression neutral. You've been here for a month. You haven't applied to jobs, you haven't looked for an apartment. If you want to stay, you need to start paying rent. I expected resistance. I expected excuses, some mild frustration, maybe a sigh or an eye roll, maybe an attempt to buy more time. I even braced myself for a half-hearted promise to try harder, a weak reassurance that he would get on it soon. But what I didn't expect, what truly took me aback, was full-on outrage. Alex scoffed, shaking his head like I had just told him something so ridiculous, so beyond comprehension, that he could barely process it. His whole body language shifted, arms crossed, jaw tightening, shoulders squaring like I had personally attacked him. He looked at me like I had just betrayed him in the worst possible way, like I was the one being unreasonable, like I had no right to even bring this up. The disbelief in his eyes wasn't just performative, it was genuine. He actually thought I was in the wrong for saying this, for daring to suggest that he take responsibility for himself. Are you serious right now? Friends don't charge friends. You promised me I could stay while I got back on my feet. It was the way he said it, the sheer entitlement dripping from his words, that made my stomach turn. He wasn't pleading, wasn't embarrassed, wasn't even remotely grateful. He was accusing me, as if I was some villain for expecting him to contribute in any way to the household he had been freeloading in for a month. That was when I realized just how deep his entitlement ran. This wasn't just a temporary situation for him. He wasn't just taking advantage of my kindness, he genuinely believed he was owed this. He truly thought that because I had let him stay, I had an obligation to keep supporting him indefinitely. I was floored. For a month, Alex. That's what we agreed on. And you haven't even tried. He threw up his hands, already defensive, already gearing up to twist this into an attack on me instead of an honest conversation about his own failures. His voice rose, dripping with indignation, with self-righteous anger, as if I was demanding the impossible from him. You think it's that easy? You think I can just snap my fingers and get a job? I'm trying, Sam. But he wasn't. We both knew he wasn't. I had given him space, given him time, and he had used it to do nothing. No applications, no job alert set up, no interview prep. I hadn't even seen him browse job listings, let alone send out a single resume. I had watched him, day after day, stretch out on my couch, streaming show after show, phone in hand, snacks on my coffee table, living like he had no responsibilities at all. He had burned through my groceries without a second thought, added to my electricity bill with his endless late-night gaming sessions, left messes in the kitchen that I was the one to clean up. He had treated this like an extended vacation at my expense, a free ride in a life he hadn't earned. Frustration bubbled up in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. I reminded him, firmly but without raising my voice, that I had worked my ass off for this home. I had spent years clawing my way out of shitty apartments, dealing with nightmare landlords, stretching every paycheck just to save enough to buy a place of my own. I had made sacrifices, given up luxuries, built something stable for myself. And now he had the audacity to act like I was the one being unfair. Like I was in the wrong for expecting him to contribute. That was when he got really defensive. He shifted gears, launching into a monologue about how hard everything was for him, how he had so much anxiety about working, how he wasn't sure what career path he even wanted anymore. He whined about how the job market was a disaster, how no one was hiring, how he didn't want to take just any job because he needed to find something that was actually worth it. Every excuse he could think of, he threw at me, hoping one would stick, hoping one would make me soften, make me doubt myself, make me relent and let him stay longer without question. But none of it explained why he had done absolutely nothing. If he was anxious about working, then why wasn't he at least researching options, looking into career counseling, reaching out for advice? If he wasn't sure about his career path, why wasn't he at least trying to find something temporary in the meantime? If the job market was so bad, why hadn't he even attempted to submit applications? Then came the final gut punch, the manipulation, the guilt trip that he knew would cut the deepest. He looked me dead in the eye, his face twisting with disappointment, with accusation, and said, "I can't believe you, Sam. You've got all this space, all this security, and instead of helping your friend, you're acting like some greedy landlord." That one hit harder than I expected, not because it was true, but because of how deliberately he said it. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was trying to make me feel guilty, trying to make me question myself, trying to make me believe that I was the bad guy for wanting to protect what was mine. He wanted me to second-guess my own boundaries, to cave under the pressure of being labeled selfish. But I wasn't selfish. I had sacrificed. I had struggled. I had worked for every inch of stability I had. And now I was supposed to feel bad for not letting him take it from me. I was supposed to feel guilty because I didn't want to let someone mooch off me indefinitely. No. Absolutely not. I told him flat out, if he wasn't paying rent, he had to leave. No more excuses, no more delaying, no more free ride. He rolled his eyes, his expression full of arrogance, acting like I was being dramatic, like I was overreacting, like I would never actually follow through. He leaned back on my couch, completely unfazed, completely unbothered, his tone dripping with condescension as he said, "Yeah, okay, Sam. We'll see." I couldn't believe it. He really thought he could just stay, rent-free, indefinitely. Update 3. A few more days passed. Each morning, I woke up with that same pit in my stomach, that same underlying tension that had been creeping into every corner of my home. I kept reminding Alex about rent, thinking that if I pushed the issue enough, he would finally take responsibility. He did not. Instead, he doubled down, treating my reminders like an annoying inconvenience rather than the simple truth of the situation. He had overstayed his welcome. He had exhausted my patience. He had turned my kindness into an expectation, a given, something he felt entitled to rather than something he should have been grateful for. Every time I brought it up, he had the same response, the same infuriatingly dismissive tone. "You know I can't pay rent right now." As if that somehow made it my problem. As if that was a valid reason for him to continue leeching off me, like my financial stability meant he had a right to coast indefinitely. His excuses were no longer just frustrating, they were insulting. I had enough. I had spent weeks giving him the benefit of the doubt, weeks trying to be patient, trying to be understanding, trying to help him see the reality of his situation. He had made it clear that he had no intention of changing, no intention of respecting the agreement we had made. And worse, he had made me the villain in his mind. To him, I wasn't a friend who had given him a safe place to land, I was just another person who was giving up on him, another person who was turning their back when things got hard. That wasn't the truth. The truth was, I had already given him more than he deserved. One afternoon, while he was out, I made my decision. There was no point in dragging this out, no point in wasting more time hoping he would wake up and take accountability. He had shown me exactly who he was. It was time to accept that. I packed up his things. Every last item. His clothes, his gaming console, his cheap cologne that had taken up residence in my bathroom. I even grabbed the half-empty bottle of expensive shampoo he had helped himself to without asking, a small but fitting symbol of how little he respected boundaries. I folded his shirts, zipped up his duffel bag, stacked everything neatly by the door. This wasn't going to be a conversation. It wasn't going to be a debate. It was simply the end of this situation, whether he liked it or not. I sent him a text. Short. Direct. No room for argument. Your stuff is packed. It's time to go. You can stay with your parents, but you can't stay here. The moment he walked through the door and saw his things stacked neatly by the entrance, his entire face changed. His expression twisted, the realization hitting him all at once. It was the first time in weeks that he actually looked surprised. He had never expected me to follow through. He had assumed, like he always did, that I would cave, that I would let guilt eat away at me and let him stay just a little longer. His voice dripped with betrayal, thick with wounded pride, as if I had just committed some kind of unforgivable crime against him. Wow. Just, wow. Like I was the one in the wrong. Like I had done something cruel and unexpected. Like he hadn't spent the past month taking advantage of my patience, my generosity, my home. I crossed my arms, standing firm. There was no point in arguing, no point in explaining myself. He knew what he had done. He knew how little he had contributed, how much he had drained from me, not just financially, but emotionally. He had given me nothing but stress, tension, and resentment, and yet he still had the audacity to act as though I was betraying him. His head shook in disbelief, a scoff slipping out of his mouth like this was all just some overreaction, like I was being dramatic for wanting my own home back. You're just like everyone else. The moment things get hard, you give up on me. That was the final nail in the coffin. Even now, even standing in front of his packed up belongings, he still didn't get it. He still thought he was the victim. He still saw himself as someone who had been wronged, rather than someone who had spent a month taking everything he could get while giving absolutely nothing in return. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I didn't give him the reaction he wanted. I just opened the door and waited. For a moment, he didn't move. His eyes darted from the packed bags to me, like he was waiting for me to change my mind, waiting for some flicker of guilt to cross my face. But there was nothing left for him here. No sympathy. No hesitation. No more free rides. He grabbed his things, his movements stiff, his expression tight with resentment. He muttered under his breath as he lifted the bags, his voice low enough that I couldn't catch every word, but I didn't need to. I already knew what he was trying to do. He wanted me to feel bad. He wanted me to waver, to second-guess myself, to feel like I had done something cruel and heartless. But I didn't feel bad. I felt relief. I watched as he walked out the door, his shoulders squared like he was the one taking the high road, like he was leaving on his own terms. He didn't look back. He didn't say anything else. He just left. And that night, for the first time in weeks, I slept better than I had in a long time. No more tension, no more stress, no more excuses, no more freeloading. My home was mine again. It was quiet, peaceful, exactly the way it had been before he had invaded my space and twisted my generosity into obligation.